Progressing your career is something that we all think about, and maybe sometimes we just focus on the hard skills, sometimes the soft skills, and you need to really engineer your career to make sure you're on the right path. So I'll run through some of the key tips that I actually have to help push your career in the right way. And some of them are just not about engineering. So whether you're a hardcore engineer that loves doing those calculations and that's all you want to do, or whether you're that manager just looking at the soft skills, maybe looking after some of the hard skills that make your employees see that you don't actually know what you're talking about or think you don't. Let's look at some of the top skills that you need to help progress your career, pushing you further and faster so you can get those promotions and make it the career that you want. Mastering your mathematical and analytical skills are extremely important as a structural engineer. You can't just be good at one, but not the other. If you're just doing hand computations, yes, this is the correct pace to start, but it will slow you down and in the more complex assessments, potentially under or overestimate the loads. If you're just doing analysis, potentially you don't know the results that are coming out and just trusting the black box, which is never a good thing, is you always have to challenge your assumptions to make sure you're understanding it correctly. If you can't analyze it in a more simple form, I keep telling everyone that you should go back to the basics and learn them correctly. If you're just an FEA junkie and just throw it into the FEA and trust the results, I don't need you. I can do that through automated processes and just believe the black box. So you have to be a structural engineer and understand the assessments. And sometimes you can even challenge the FEA that it hasn't analyzed it properly because you've made some boundary conditions assumptions which are incorrect. It's about that interaction back and forth between both of them. I would always start with the hand calculations as that builds the fundamental understanding of how your system goes in place. Even hand assessments are getting easier today as well now. I use a software, which I will recommend that I do co-found. This is MathJot, and you can see through here, you can do repeatable calculations quickly that can fundamentally understand how the forces are going. You can make quick assessments and analyze force transfer and tweak it to see how it's comparing to your FEA analysis. FEA analysis is also something that you need to know as well. And you need to know how the different softwares interact, whether you're using RAM Concept, ETABS, or even Strand 7. They all interact in a different way and have different assumptions. So you need to fundamentally know how your software actually works and not just jumping into the more complex block models that may lead to the right answer, but at other times it can have over stiffness assessments by not using the correct modeling type, the correct mesh. So if you're not seeing a similar result in your hand assessment as you are with your model, it's about analyzing about which one is correct and becoming to a combination where they're both within a similar result range. The hand computation will also obviously always be out from your FEA, but they should be in a similar order of magnitude in the long run. Now you may be thinking about it, why do I need to know this basic assessment? I can just throw the answers into AI. If you're just throwing the answers into AI, in the long term, your career will slow down. I don't really need someone who does that, as I can do that myself, or even multiple of agents that do that. I'll still need to check the results to make sure it's correct. But if you're just sending me the results that are out of the assessment, either through being AI or FEA, then I don't really need you. I still need to use my engineering judgment to see whether the results are correct and challenge the assumptions. So it's about knowing what you're doing is correct, but using the tools in the way that they're intended and knowing the limitations. AI is just one of those tools, and knowing the limitations is important. Sometimes you throw in a simple problem, it will give you an incorrect result back because it's just trying to give you an answer. If you didn't understand the basics, you don't know whether those results are correct or not. So the number one key tip is making sure that you have good analytical and analysis skills that you can combine to help you analyze the assessments correctly. This is really what engineers are about. Even later in your career, when you're looking at other results and analyzing the assessment, the results of your junior engineers or that AI tool that you're using, challenge them and train them up so their analytical skills get better. So as we're talking about your analyst skills, you're moving into a more constant learning assessment. Today's age, things are moving faster and faster and faster, meaning that more and more that you need to keep up. Whether you're starting out, progressing further in your career, constant learning through your whole career development is extremely important. Getting better at what you do, analyzing different areas. What you're trying to learn or what you're trying to analyze may change. You need to keep that learning going up, challenging your assumptions all the time. As back in the day, you used to do things like allowable stress design. There's been a fundamental change to ultimate stress design. It leads to similar results. In some edge cases though, it leads to dramatically different answers. So you need to make sure you're keeping up with the latest. as if you get too far behind, potentially your hand calculations or assessments are inaccurate or missing some fundamental errors. That is one of the other key aspects that you need to focus on, is your leadership and communication skills. I'm just starting out. I don't need to worry about that. If you can't communicate, you don't really know the value that you're bringing, or people potentially can't understand you. Everything that we do is some level of communication, whether it be in our hand calculations to explain a problem to someone else that's more technical, whether it be in our drawings to explain to a client or a builder about how to build the building or where the key problems are in your structure, whether it be in an email that you write to someone, or whether it be in those communications in meetings. It's showing who you are, what you stand for, and how you can help them in the next project. You're only as good as your last project you worked on, and your communication skills are super critical to progressing that client and keeping them up to date and making sure those projects go smoothly. Even looking at other resources online, such as Simon Sinek or even Jefferson Fisher, about how we can actually communicate correctly between colleagues and deal with some of those more complex assessments. When you are trying to communicate effectively, sometimes it can feel uncomfortable. But the more times you put yourself in that uncomfortable situation, the better communicator you will be. Practical experience is often something that is often overlooked. When you've just started out of university, you may have a lot of good theoretical knowledge, but you don't have the practical experience to back it up. Even going to site for a couple of years is really beneficial as you see how structures actually go together and how things are actually built. Being on the ground floor and going backwards and forwards about how a structure is actually built will give you so much more knowledge than you think you will than just sitting there and doing the numbers. But also about taking control of your career and seeing where you're getting practical experience. Have I done still design? Have I done seismic design? It's really critical that you're making sure that you're looking at your PT design, concrete design, steel design, and they're all coming together to make sure you're getting enough experience of a broad range of topics. It's not just about shying away from the hard things, but when your things are starting to get hard, it means that you're pushing yourself to where you need to go. Problem solving and creativity skills are one of the most overlooked, arguably one of the most important skills for you to be a good designer. If you look at some of the great engineers in Italy, they were both engineer and architect. We can see that through Italy, we can see that through Spain. They're all showing the one key aspect that is super critical, and it's about the creative nature coming together to be a great engineer. As you're looking at flows, it becomes more of an art than a science. Knowing how structures actually behave can make beautiful systems that flow like nature. Listening to the client about trying to solve the problems that they have. Sometimes they may be speaking about a problem A, but really they're looking at a problem over here when they thought it was over here. So looking at how those results come together and questioning, is this the right path or which way do we go? This problem solving is about being curious and asking the right questions. And this leads me into the last point, which is around the benefits and tools for using AI. The best way I can describe AI, it's like a really helpful graduate. Always wants to give you an answer. It doesn't matter if it knows what it's doing, doesn't know if it's on the right path. It's always constantly trying to probe you to give you to that right result. Where it's fundamentally missing is it's only as good as the task that you set it or the questions that you give it. So one of the key tips is about trying to build that prompt up. So first up, I would start by saying, I'm trying to build a prompt that does A, B, C, D, has to interact in a certain way. So you read through that instruction set and see what aspects is actually applied to. Is it actually reading to a certain code? So being very specific about what codes it should be answering your results to. Making sure that you're saying you shall not fabricate your references. You need to fundamentally have credibility references across each of them. You need to also make sure that you're not just giving an answer because you want it. If you don't know, let me know. So that means that you're fundamentally telling it a good instruction set of what you're trying to do and how you're trying to get to the right answer. I even do this with some of the writing I do. I'll write a real style guide about how I wanted to write, how I wanted to rewrite, but also give me tips on how to rewrite those different aspects. One of the best things that I've been finding that gives a great result is the fact that it's saying that I want this writing to be 100 times clearer. What it does, it then rewrites it in a certain way, making it clearer and more concise. When you do get it, you do need to read through it. And I typically rewrite it with my own words, but it gives me a good way going backwards and forwards. So whether you're doing fundamental research, putting it on rails and making sure it's guiding down the right path and knows what to do if it doesn't know the answer. And the fact that it's also stress testing the results perfectly, but also making sure that you're not just blindly following it. You're using it as a research and learning tool to make your skills better. So if you do it with synergy and you do it in the right way, it would be like giving someone a Ferrari versus a Daihatsu. Both of them go fast, but if you can use it in the right way and use it in synergy, you'll be in that better car, driving better down a road. If you apply it with the correct prompts, you're getting a better result out and you're becoming a better driver as well. If you did enjoy this video, you'll like this video here about 7 key tips to be an effective engineer linked here. And if you're interested in supporting the channel, there's 2 ways that you can do this. You can either become a YouTube or Patreon member. Without the support of my YouTube or Patreon members, this type of content will not be possible. As always, keep learning, and I hope to see you next time.